the game logic here, the second half of this flip game that we have. And you know, so far I've got these tiles, and they flip over, and they won't flip over, they won't flip back again, and they don't know when they're matched. But we're getting pretty close. There's just a couple things to do here to finish this up. So far this is what we have. So you know, when you click on a tile, I'm calling those boxes tiles, right? So when you click on a box, right, then we're going to keep track of the first pick and the second pick, okay? And the box element, it gets the class flip when you flip it over. And then when you remove the flip, it flips back, right? And it will get the lock class when we find two that match, okay? If it has either the flip or the lock class, then our code from the last example is going to just return and exit, and we're not going to continue. But if they don't have the flip or the lock class, then we should be turning them over to look at them, right? So what we'll do is this. I'm going to change this toggle class function here to add class, okay? Because we don't want to toggle anymore. We don't want to click to flip one back. It'll flip back by itself if you don't have a match, right? So we're going to add the class flip, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use an if statement here. And what we want to do is we want to look at first pick, okay? And we want to find out if first pick is equal to undefined, okay? So if it's undefined, then we know you haven't made your first pick yet, okay? And so then we're gonna do something with that, right? So I'm using the triple equal sign here, and this says that, you know, first pick variable must be equal to and also the same type or kind as undefined, right? So this is a little safer. The double equal just says the two match, but they don't necessarily have to be the same type, okay? So it's a little safer to use the triple equal, right? So I'm doing that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, first pick equals, and I'm going to set it equal to this, right? So it'll be the you know, box element that you clicked on. So this is, you know, first pick is the element, you know, it'll reference the element that you clicked on first, okay? So there we go. So that's set, right? Then I'm going to put an else statement in here. So if first pick is not undefined, then it should be equal to one of the tiles that or the boxes that you clicked on. Else, we're going to do some other logic here. So we're going to say second pick equals this. Okay, so you got your first pick, and now you got your second pick, okay? And so what we want to do is, if you've made your second pick, then you have two tiles displayed, and we want to compare them. And if you recall, each one of those tiles has an attribute value. Let me move this over just a little bit like that, because I'll need a little more space. This will be a long line, right? So remember that each one of the tiles has the data attribute, right? This data name attribute that has the name of the tile, and we can find matching tiles by matching the name. Like this Alien 11 and Alien 11 here are the two matching tiles, right? Okay, so let's check that, right? So what we'll do is we'll say if, and I'm going to say if first pick, and remember first pick is a jQuery object, so we can call any of the jQuery functions. And I'm going to say attr, so that stands for attribute, and the attribute I'm looking for is data name, okay? And I want to check to see if that is equal to second pick dot data or dot attribute, and then the attribute is data name again. So I want to see if those two match, okay? Now notice here I'm using attribute in a little different form than we used it earlier. So up here I used attribute, and I included two parameters. The first was the name of the attribute, and the second was the value we were assigning to that attribute. Down here I'm using attribute, or attr, with one parameter, and that's just the name of the attribute, and in this case it returns the value of that attribute. So here I'm comparing the value of these two attributes, okay? So they should both return a string, so they should be the same type. And if they have the same characters in the string, then that will be a match, right? Okay, so that means like right here, we've got a match, right? You can say, you might as well test this for yourself, right? You can say console log match, right? And then I'm going to put an else statement in here. And if we get down into this block of code, that means they don't match, okay? No match. Okay, so here, if these two match, then we've created a match. And if they don't match, then we're going to be in this block. Okay, so we have a match up here. We don't have a match here. In either case, we need to clear the first pick and second pick so you can start a new pair of picks again. So actually right here, before the final curly brace for this if statement, but just the curly brace that matches this one, right? So, if you've picked the first one and picked the second one, then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I clear first pick by setting it back to undefined, and then clear second pick by setting it to undefined. Okay, so it's key that we do that, because otherwise the next time we click on one, the first and second pick will still have the same values that we gave to them, right? So we'll clear those. And then now what do? Well, if we have a match, what I want to do is I want to assign the lock class to both first and second pick so that they'll be locked, right? And then we're done. We don't have to do anything. They're already displayed, right? So what we'll do is we'll say first pick dot add class. Oops. And the class I'm looking for is lock. This has to be the same spelling that we're looking for up here, right? And then the second pick, add class lock, right? Okay, and then once we get past this if statement, then it'll clear first and second pick, right? If we've skipped over this first block here and we're in the else statement, then we don't have a match, right? So what we want to do here is I want to flip the tiles back, but actually I want to put a little bit of a delay on them, right? So I want them to wait a second before they flip back, because otherwise you wouldn't see them. You'd click on the second one and it would just like flip right over immediately, right? So we're going to put a little delay in there. And the thing is, the first and second pick are going to be cleared before the delay finishes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little quirk of JavaScript here, and I'm going to make a variable here called a, and then I'll say a is going to be equal to first pick, okay? And variable b is going to be equal to second pick, okay? Right, now I'll talk about why that is in a moment, right? So I'm declaring these two guys in these variables. So I'm just kind of transferring first pick to second pick. And then right below here, I'm going to use JavaScript's set timeout function. Okay, so this set timeout is a little timer that happens one time, like you can assign it a function to execute sometime in the future. And so we can put that function here, actually. Function, right, and we'll just write it all with the parentheses and the curly brackets. And then the second parameter is, you can actually, if you can read that, it says number of milliseconds, right? So we can put in 1,000. So set timeout is a timer that will execute this block of code, this function block, at this number of milliseconds in the future, and it does it one time. If you need to repeatedly execute code over and over again, you can use set interval, okay? I'm going to put a line return there. So our set timeout is going to happen in 1 second, and when it does, what we're going to do is we're going to say a, and remember a was first pick, right? And it's a jQuery object, so we can say a.remove class, and then the class we want to remove is flip. So if we remove the flip class, we know that our tiles or our box, our boxes flip over again, right? Or flip back to their their original state. So we'll say remove class, and then we'll remove the flip from B also. Okay, so there we go, right? Let's give that a try and see if I did it right there. I might need to come back and fix something. Sometimes it doesn't work the first try. But anyway, we'll give that a try, so I'll save that. And then we'll come back and we'll take a quick look at it again. So let me refresh this. Oh, good, no errors, right? And I'll click on the first one, and so it waits. And if I click it again, it doesn't flip back and nothing else happens. And I click on the second one, and then a second later, they flip over again. Let's see, can we find some matches here? Oh, there's one, right? So I flip those two guys over. And if you look here, you can see they now have the lock class, right? Because I matched them, and if I click them, nothing happens, right? Let's find another match. I think this one matched this one down here. So you can see, like, we'll see this first one right here has flip, right? And then when I click on this one down here, you can see it now has lock. Okay, and now they're locked. So our game, it's kind of working, right? Oh, there we go. There's another match, right? So let's talk about this last step here, right? So what's going on here? Well, since this block of code is contained inside of a function, right? So all of this code is part of this function all the way down to here, okay? So everything here is part of this click function. And when you declare a variable inside of a function with the keyword var, then that variable is remembered inside that function. They call it a closure, and it kind of owns this variable. And so when we call the set timeout can still reference the variables inside that instance of the function that ran a second before. Because remember, you're going to click, and the click function runs immediately, right? And so it goes through all of the logic here. You know, it checks on, you know, first pick, and, you know, oh wait, actually it starts up here, you know, it checks on, you know, if it has the flip class, the lock class, you know, it adds the flip class with add class. It, you know, it checks if this is undefined. It does all this stuff. And then it even, maybe in some cases, if there's a match, it sets first pick in this variable A, and it sets second pick in variable B. And then it goes down to here, and it sets first pick to undefined and second pick to undefined. And it had just created this timeout, but the function inside the timeout hasn't run yet. So all of this stuff happens almost immediately. Everything here happens immediately, and you define these variables. But this timeout is something that we've set aside to do at a future time. And so what happens is, since these are, you know, set to undefined, you know, 1 second later, if we had done, you know, first pick here and second pick here, then what would happen is we'd get an error because we would try to call remove class on undefined, right? And that would be a problem, right? That would generate an error, right? In our case, though, the variable A and the variable B, they kind of live on after the click function ends, because they're part of this closure, right? The function encloses these two variables. And so these guys live on. And so when set timeout runs, it can find them and get their value, even though first pick and second pick were set to undefined, right? So anyway, I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's fun for you guys to play with. And let me know if you like that. And, you know, thanks for watching.